They said my new bodyguard was the safest man alive. They lied. The men my parents are hiding me from carry guns and grudges, but Jun carries a silence that feels like a burial shroud. He doesn't look at me like a client. He looks at me like a territory he's already conquered. The moment his gloved hand clamped around my arm to pull me from the crowd, a cold shiver raced through my veins, not from fear of the assassins, but from the sudden, terrifying realization that the cage I'm in is now made of his shadow. I was looking for a shield. Instead, I found a master. The air in California was too dry, lacking the salt-thick humidity of my home in the Caribbean. I stood in the center of the marble foyer, my luggage looking like small islands against the white floor. "He's the best, Emma," my father's voice crackled over the speakerphone. "The safest man alive, trust him." Then the front door opened. Jum didn't walk in, he invaded the space. He was a pillar of dark suit fabric and lethal intent. His hair was black silk, his eyes two chips of frozen obsidian. He didn't bow. He didn't smile. He simply looked at me, scanning from my crown down to my heels, as if he were calculating exactly how many locks he needed to keep me inside. "Miss Emma," he said. His voice was a low, gravelly vibration that settled deep in my chest. "I am Jum.
I am
From
June.
this moment, your
From this
life is no
moment, your
longer your
life is no
own.
longer your
It is
own, it is
mine to
mine to
preserve."
preserve.
I felt a flash of my island fire. I was told I was getting a bodyguard, not a warden. Jum stepped into my personal space, ignoring the concept of boundaries. He was so close I could smell sandalwood and cold steel. "There is no difference," he whispered. "Not until the threat is dead." He didn't give me time to argue. Jum began a sweep of the house, moving with a silent, predatory grace. I followed him, my heels clicking defiantly against the floor.
I have a
"I have
dinner
a
meeting
dinner
at
meeting at
8.
8,
A
I
friend of
said,
mine from the
crossing my
embassy.
arms over my
Cancelled.
chest. "A friend from the embassy." Jum stopped abruptly. I nearly slammed into his broad back. He turned slowly, his gaze dropping to my lips for a fraction of a second before meeting my eyes. "Cancelled." "Excuse me," I snapped. "You don't get to manage my social calendar." He took a single step toward me, forcing me back against the hallway wall. He placed a hand on either side of my head, pinning me with his shadow. He was a giant of a man, his Korean heritage reflected in his sharp, aristocratic features and the terrifying discipline in his posture. "You
You
are
are being
being
hunted,
hunted,
Emma.
Emma," he said, his face inches from mine. "Every person you know is a potential entry point for a bullet. You will eat what I provide. You will go where I allow. Do you understand?" The heat radiating from him was a physical weight. My heart hammered against my ribs, not just from anger, but from a sudden, treacherous spark of attraction. I tried to push past him, my palm landing against his chest. It was like hitting solid granite. He didn't move an inch, but his hand suddenly shot out, his fingers wrapping around my wrist. "They said my new bodyguard was the safest man alive," I breathed, my voice trembling. "They lied." Jum's grip didn't loosen. Instead, he pulled my arm slightly, bringing me flush against his suit jacket. "Why do you say that?" "Because the moment you touched my arm." I looked up at him, my dark skin contrasting against his pale, scarred knuckles. "I knew you were more dangerous than the people chasing me." A ghost of a smirk touched his lips, a cold, dark thing that didn't reach his eyes. "Smart girl," he murmured. He didn't let go. He let his thumb brush over the pulse point of my wrist, feeling the frantic rhythm of my heart. He knew exactly what he was doing to me. He wasn't just protecting me from the assassins. He was claiming the territory before they could even get close. The sun began to set, casting long, orange shadows through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I watched as Jum moved through the house, activating high-tech security arrays I hadn't even noticed before. He was methodical, obsessed with detail. "I need my phone," I said, reaching for my purse on the counter. Jum's hand got there first. He picked up the device and tucked it into his pocket. "Jum, give it back. I need to call my mother." Your lines are compromised, he said, his back to me. I will provide a secure line when I have finished the encryption. Until then, you are offline, disappeared. I felt a surge of panic. You can't just cut me off from the world. He turned around, his expression unreadable. I can. I am the only world you have right now, Emma. Get used to the silence. He walked toward me, his presence filling the kitchen. He reached out, his fingers grazing the curve of my jaw, forcing me to look at him. Go upstairs, bathe, dress in something comfortable. I will bring your dinner shortly. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a command. I retreated to my bedroom, the silence of the massive house feeling like a heavy blanket. I tried the door, but the electronic lock engaged with a soft click the moment I closed it. He had locked me in. I paced the room, my mind racing. I was a Caribbean woman used to the sun, the music, and the roar of the ocean. Now I was a bird in a gilded cage, guarded by a man who looked at me like I was his most prized and most dangerous possession. An hour later, the door unlocked. Jum entered carrying a tray. He had changed out of his suit jacket. His white shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle and ink. He set the tray down and didn't leave. He sat in the chair across from the bed, crossing his long legs, watching me.
Are you going
Are
to
you
watch
going
me
to watch
eat?
me eat? I asked, my voice defiant despite the tremor in my hands. I am going to watch you do everything, Jum replied, his voice dark and steady, until I am certain you are mine to keep safe. The way he said mine made the hair on my arms stand up. The protector had become the possessor. The atmosphere in the house shifted from a sanctuary to a high-tech fortress. Jum's presence was everywhere, in the hum of the security cameras, the heavy click of the locks, and the weight of his gaze that never seemed to leave me. The next morning, I woke to the sound of the electronic bolt sliding back. Jum stood in the doorway, already dressed in a crisp black shirt that hugged his lethal frame. He held a simple silk robe in his hand. Put this on, he commanded. We begin your new routine. I have my own clothes, Jum, I said, sitting up and pulling the duvet to my chest. The sight of him in my bedroom at dawn was a jolt to my system. Your old clothes are distractions, too bright, too easy to spot from a distance, he said, stepping into the room. He tossed the robe onto the foot of the bed. From now on, you wear what I approve, you eat what I prepare, you move when I signal. I felt the Caribbean fire rise in my blood. You're not protecting me anymore. You're domesticating me. Jum leaned over the bed, his face inches from mine. I could smell the faint scent of rain and expensive tobacco on him. I am keeping you alive, Emma. In my world, those are the same thing. 10 minutes. Don't make me come back in to dress you myself. He led me to the glass-walled gym on the lower level. The California sun was trying to break through the tinted windows, but Jum's presence swallowed the light. If I am separated from you, you must know how to disable a man, he said, circling me like a shark. Not kill him, just give me the 3 seconds I need to reach you. He stepped in close, instructing me to strike his chest. I swung, my fist landing against his pec. It felt like hitting a marble statue. He didn't flinch. Instead, he caught my hand, his fingers interlacing with mine in a grip that was far too intimate for a lesson. Again, he whispered, with the intent to hurt me. I lunged again, but he pivoted, his body brushing against mine. The friction sent a jolt of electricity through me. He tripped me lightly, and I fell, not to the floor but into his arms. He held me against his chest, his heart beating a slow, steady rhythm against my spine. You're distracted, he murmured into my ear, his breath hot against my skin. That's how you die, Emma. By midday, the isolation was starting to grate on my nerves. I went to the master bathroom to splash cold water on my face, trying to wash away the feeling of his hands on my waist. I looked in the mirror and gasped. Jum was standing in the reflection behind me. He hadn't made a sound.
Do you
Do you
ever
ever
knock?
knock? I snapped, clutching the edge of the vanity. Locks are for enemies. I am the key, he replied. He stepped forward, picking up a brush from the counter. I froze as he began to brush my hair. His movements were surprisingly gentle, a jarring contrast to the coldness of his words. He worked through the curls with a steady, rhythmic patience. "Why are you doing this?" I whispered, my reflection looking small against his massive silhouette. "Because you belong to a family that people want to break," he said, his eyes meeting mine in the mirror. "And because I don't like other people touching what is mine to guard. I am the only one allowed to see you like this." The brush hit a tangle and he paused, his hand resting on the back of my neck. His thumb stroked the sensitive skin there, a possessive, territorial mark that made my knees weak. The silence of the afternoon was shattered by a sharp, electronic chirp from Jum's wristcom. His entire demeanor changed in a heartbeat. The tamer vanished, replaced by the predator. He grabbed my arm, his grip bruising. "To the safe room now." "What's happening?" I stumbled after him, my heart hammering. "Motion sensors on the north perimeter, 2 targets." He didn't look back. He hauled me toward the hidden door behind the library bookshelf. He pushed me inside the small, steel-lined room. It was cramped, filled with monitors showing every angle of the estate. Before I could speak, he checked the slide on his handgun with a terrifyingly efficient clack-clack. "Stay here. If the door opens and it isn't me, use the hidden vent." "Jum, don't leave me," I blurted out. The fear of the assassins was real, but the fear of being without his shadow was suddenly worse. He paused, his hand on the heavy steel door. He looked at me, a dark, primal hunger flashing in his eyes. He stepped back in, grabbed the back of my head and kissed me, a hard, punishing claim that tasted of desperation and steel. "I always come back for what's mine," he growled, then slammed the door, locking me in total darkness. I sat in the dark for what felt like hours, listening to the muffled thuds of combat and the distant crack of a suppressed firearm. When the door finally hissed open, I was trembling. Jum stood there. There was a smear of blood on his cheekbone that wasn't his, and his shirt was torn at the shoulder. He looked like a god of war returned from the slaughter. I didn't think. I ran to him, throwing my arms around his neck. He grunted as I collided with him, his arms wrapping around me so tight I could barely breathe. He buried his face in the crook of my neck, inhaling my scent as if it were oxygen. "They're gone," he rasped. "You're bleeding," I whispered, reaching up to touch the red smudge on his face. He caught my hand, licking the blood from his own skin while holding my gaze. The intensity was suffocating. "I told you, I am the most dangerous man you will ever meet." He picked me up, my legs instinctively wrapping around his waist. He didn't take me to my room, he took me to his. "Tonight, you don't sleep alone. You don't stay out of my sight for a single second." The tension in the air was thick enough to choke on. The threat outside had been neutralized, but the one inside the room, the one holding me against his chest, was far more intoxicating. Jum kicked the door to his quarters shut. Unlike the rest of the house, his room was sparse, clinical, and smelled of gun oil and cedar. He didn't set me down immediately. He held me against the door, his body a heavy, warm weight that anchored me to reality. "You're shaking," he murmured, his dark eyes searching mine for a sign of fear. "You killed them," I whispered, my voice caught between a sob and a gasp. "I heard the shots." "I protected what is mine," he corrected. He finally let my feet touch the floor, but his hands stayed on my waist, his thumbs digging into the soft flesh of my hips. "In my country, we don't leave loose ends, and in this house I don't leave you alone when you're compromised." He reached out, his long fingers unbuttoning the silk robe he'd forced me into earlier. I should have stopped him. I should have fought. But the adrenaline from the attack had turned into a desperate, primal need for heat. "Look at me, Emma," he commanded. I looked. His face was a mask of discipline, but his eyes were burning. He traced the line of my collarbone, his touch leaving a trail of fire on my dark skin. "They wanted to take you," he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. "To use you to get to your father, to put their hands on you." He pulled me closer, his knuckles grazing my breast. I let out a shaky breath, my head falling back. "And what do you want, Jum?" "I want to make sure you remember who saved you," he rasped. "I want you to know that the only person allowed to touch you, the only person allowed to own you, is me." He bent his head, biting softly at the junction of my neck and shoulder. It wasn't a lover's caress. It was a mark, a claim. And God help me, I wanted it. He lifted me onto the edge of his desk, scattering surveillance tablets and tactical maps. The cold metal against my thighs made me shiver, but Jum was there to provide the heat. He didn't ask, he took. His kiss was a battlefield, aggressive, demanding, and utterly possessive. He tasted like the storm that had just passed. My hands found the hair at the nape of his neck, pulling him closer, needing to feel the heart that beat beneath that iron exterior. "You're mine, Emma," he groaned against my lips. "Tell me." "I'm yours," I breathed, the words feeling like a surrender and a prayer all at once. He stripped away the last of the silk, his eyes roaming over my body with a hunger that made me feel more seen than I ever had in the Caribbean sun. He was a man of shadows, but in this moment, he was the only light I could see. The room was silent save for the sound of our breathing and the distant hum of the security monitors. Jum moved with a lethal grace, his hands exploring every curve of my body as if he were memorizing a map. When he finally entered me, it wasn't with gentleness. It was with the same fierce intensity he used to defend the perimeter. He was marking his territory, filling my world until there was nothing left but him. I arched my back, my fingers digging into the muscles of his back, feeling the scars that told stories of a life I didn't yet understand. He watched my face the entire time, his expression intense, almost pained, as if this connection was a breach in his own professional armor. "Emma," he choked out, my name sounding like a confession on his tongue. For a moment the bodyguard was gone. There was only Jum, a man obsessed, a man who had crossed every line to keep me, and a man who would never let me go. I woke up wrapped in gray silk sheets that smelled of him. The room was dim, but I could see Jum sitting by the window, a laptop glowing in front of him. He was back in a clean black shirt, his hair perfectly in place. The intimacy of the night before felt like a fever dream until he turned around. The look in his eyes wasn't regret. It was a reinforced steel resolve.
The target were
"The
sent by a
targets
man
were
named
sent by a
Santiago.
man named Santiago," he said, his voice cold and professional again. "Your father didn't tell you the whole truth about why you're here." I sat up, clutching the sheet to my chest. "What truth?" Jum stood up and walked toward the bed. He leaned over me, his hand coming out to cup my cheek. "You weren't just sent here for protection, Emma. You were sent here as payment, and I've decided I'm not giving you back." My heart went cold. "Payment? What are you talking about?" "Your father owes my organization a debt," Jum whispered, his thumb brushing my lower lip. "And I've decided that you are the only currency I'm willing to accept." The revelation of being currency hung in the air like a suffocating fog. The man who had just held me with such primal intensity was now looking at me like a ledger he had finally balanced. "Payment," I whispered, the word tasting like ash. I scrambled back, the silk sheets tangled around my legs. "My father wouldn't. He loves me." Jum didn't flinch. He sat on the edge of the bed, the weight of his body sinking the mattress toward him. "Your father is a man of grand ambitions and even grander debts, Emma. He funded his last 3 elections with money that didn't belong to him, money that belonged to my associates in Seoul." He reached out, catching a stray curl of my hair and winding it around his finger. "When the
When the
collectors
collector
came
came calling,
calling,
he
he
offered them a
offered them a
guarantee, a
guarantee, a
hostage to endure his
hostage to
cooperation.
ensure
He
his
offered you.
cooperation. He offered you." The room felt like it was spinning. My vibrant island life, the laughter of my mother, the pride I felt for my father. It was all a facade built on a foundation of my own souled freedom. And you, I choked out, you're just the repo man. Jum's eyes darkened, a flash of something possessive and angry crossing his face. I was supposed to be, but I don't share my assets. I bought your debt from them. You don't belong to Soul anymore, Emma. You belong to me. I spent the afternoon locked in the library, though locked was a relative term in this house. Jum was the lock, the key, and the gatekeeper. I began digging through the secure server he'd left open. A slip-up I suspected was intentional. I found his files, Jum Ho-seok. He wasn't just a security expert. He was a ghost, a former Black Ops operative for the Republic of Korea who had disappeared after a bloody coup attempt in a neighboring territory. The photos showed a younger, more scarred version of the man in the kitchen. In every picture, he was standing over someone or something, a silent sentinel of destruction. Found what you were looking for. I jumped, the tablet sliding across the mahogany table. Jum stood in the doorway, a glass of dark amber liquid in his hand. You're a mercenary, I said, my voice cold. I am a man who understands that the world is built on power, he replied, walking toward me. Your father had none. I have it all, and I've used it to keep you from being sold to much worse men than me. I stood up, my height nearly matching his as I stepped into his space. Don't act like a hero, Jum. You didn't save me. You hijacked me. I slapped him. The sound echoed through the high-ceilinged room. His head snapped to the side, but he didn't move. A red mark bloomed on his pale cheek. He turned back slowly, his eyes burning with a terrifying, hungry light. He didn't strike back. Instead, he grabbed my waist and hauled me against him, his grip so tight I gasped. That's the fire I saw the first day, he rasped, his nose brushing against mine. The fire that makes you worth every cent of the millions I paid for you. I am not a thing to be bought, I screamed, pounding my fists against his shoulders. In this house, you are exactly what I say you are, he growled. He swung me over his shoulder like a prize of war. And right now, you are a woman who needs to be reminded who her master is. He didn't take me to a bedroom. He took me to the basement, a sleek, soundproofed bunker filled with monitors and weapons. But in the corner, there was a bed, perfectly made, and a closet filled with clothes in my exact size. You knew, I whispered as he set me down. You've been planning this since before I even arrived in California. Jum began unbuttoning his shirt, his movements slow and deliberate. I've been watching you for a year, Emma. I watched you on the beaches in Kingston. I watched you at the university. I saw the way you looked at the horizon, wanting more than that small island could give you. He stepped closer, his bare chest a map of scars and muscle. Your father didn't just give you to me. He gave me the opportunity to take what I had already decided was mine. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The danger wasn't just the assassins. The danger was the man who had been stalking me from across the world, waiting for the perfect moment to become my only savior. The monitor on the wall flickered to life. It showed a live feed of my father's estate back home. Men in black tactical gear, the same ones from the perimeter, were surrounding the house. What is this? I grabbed Jum's arm. My anger replaced by sheer terror. Jum, what are they doing to my family? Santiago's men, Jum said, his voice devoid of emotion. They realized I bought your contract. They aren't happy. They're going to kill your father to send a message to me. Save them, I begged, clutching his shirt. You have the power, you said so. Save them. Jum looked down at me, his expression unreadable. He caught my chin in his hand, forcing me to meet his obsidian gaze. I will save them, he whispered. But the price just went up, Emma. If I send my men to clear that estate, you sign the papers. You stay here. You never leave this house. You never speak to them again. You become a ghost just like me, my ghost. I looked at the screen, then back at the man who held my soul in his hands. I had to choose. my family's lives or my own life as a bird in Jum's gilded, dark cage. Save them, I sobbed. I'm yours forever. Jum picked up a radio, his eyes never leaving mine. Target cleared. Kill everyone on the perimeter. The asset has been secured. The trap had snapped shut. By saving my family, Jum hadn't just protected my past. He had officially purchased my future. The final days in the California fortress were no longer about survival. They were about the total eclipse of my will by his. The morning after the raid on my father's estate, the house was eerily silent. Jum entered the dining room, not with breakfast, but with a thick leather folder. He placed it on the table in front of me. "The deed to your life," he said simply. I scanned the documents. They were complex legal filings, trusts, non-disclosure agreements, and a marriage license already signed by him. It was a total erasure of Emma of the Caribbean. I would exist only as a shadow under the protection of Jum's security firm. "You're serious," I whispered, looking up at him. "You're actually going to keep me here
You are
forever?"
actually going to keep me here
Jum leaned
forever.
over the table, his knuckles brushing the papers. "The world is a graveyard for beautiful things, Emma. I am the only fence high enough to keep the wolves out. Sign, and I will show you that a cage can be a kingdom." I picked up the pen. My hand shook, but I thought of my mother's face, safe in her garden because of this man's violence. I signed. The dynamic shifted instantly. Jum no longer treated me as a client. He treated me as an extension of himself. That afternoon, he took me to the shooting range in the sub-basement. He stood behind me, his chest flush against my back, his large, scarred hands guiding mine as I held a heavy black pistol. "You are my greatest vulnerability," he rasped in my ear, "and I do not tolerate weakness. If I fall, you must be the one to finish the job." "You won't fall," I said, the scent of his cologne mixing with the smell of gunpowder. "Everyone falls, Emma, but you will be the last thing they see." He pressed his cheek against mine, his finger covering mine on the trigger. "Together, fire." The recoil jarred my bones, but he held me steady. We fired again and again until the target was shredded. He wasn't just teaching me to shoot, he was molding me into his image. The piece was a lie. Santiago, the man my father had crossed, wasn't content with losing his currency. He launched a final, desperate assault on the California estate. The alarm screamed at 3:00 a.m. I woke to Jum throwing a tactical vest over my silk nightgown. "They're inside the gate," he said, his eyes glowing with a dark, anticipatory joy. This was what he was built for. "Stay in the panic room. Do not come out until you hear my voice and only my voice." "Jum, wait," I grabbed his hand. He stopped, pulling me into a kiss that tasted of copper and finality. "If they get past me, Emma, use the last bullet on yourself. I won't let them have what I paid for." He vanished into the darkness of the hallway, a silencer-equipped rifle in his hand. I watched the monitors from the panic room. It was a dance of shadows. Jum moved like a demon, silent and invisible, picking off Santiago's men one by one. He was a master of his craft, a man who had turned murder into an art form. Then I saw Santiago himself on the screen, cornered in the library. Jum didn't shoot him. He dropped his weapon and fought the man with his bare hands. It was brutal, primal. I saw the moment Jum won, not just the fight, but the war. He stood over Santiago, his face covered in blood, looking directly into the camera lens. He knew I was watching. He wanted me to see the monster he was. He wanted me to know that there was no one else in the world who could love me with this much violence. He finished the job with a cold, clinical efficiency that made my stomach churn, and my heart race in equal measure. The sun rose over the Pacific, casting a golden light over the blood-spattered estate. Jum came to the panic room and opened the door. He was exhausted, his shirt ruined, his knuckles raw. He didn't say a word, he just held out his hand. I looked at his palm, then up at his face. I knew now that I would never return to the Caribbean. I would never hear the steel drums of my home or feel the freedom of the island wind. I was the possession of a man who killed for me, who bought me, and who would destroy the world to keep me. I took his hand. He pulled me into his arms, his grip bruisingly tight, his heart beating against mine like a drum of war.
You are mine,
"You are
Emma.
mine, Emma," he whispered, his voice a possessive vow that echoed in the quiet room. "I am yours, Jum," I replied, leaning into the darkness of his embrace. The protector had won. The owner had claimed his prize. And in the silence of the California morning, the bird finally stopped fluttering against the bars of her cage. The debt has been paid. So Emma's world of island sun and freedom ends, not with a whimper, but with the click of a golden lock and the shadow of the man who bought her life. Jum's protection came at the ultimate price, and now, the fire of the Caribbean meets the cold steel of soul in a bond that can never be broken. Is it love, or is it the ultimate obsession? In Jum's world, they are one and the same. Join the conversation. A story this dark and intense always leaves a mark. We want to know what you think about the high-stakes world of Jum and Emma. Drop a comment below and let us know. Which part of the story got you hooked? Was it the moment Jum first touched Emma's arm, or the chilling reveal of the debt her father owed? Do you think Emma is truly safe, or is she in more danger than ever? What was your favorite dark alpha moment from Jum? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more high-tension, forbidden romances and stories that push the boundaries of desire and danger. What would you do if your protector became your owner? Tell us in the comments.